Hello, and welcome to episode 170 of the Weight Solutions for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Siobhan Key. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. All right, I have a good episode. I have been thinking about this episode for weeks now, planning it, and I think it's a really important topic, and it's a totally different way to think about your weight loss and any past weight loss attempts or regain or any perceived failures. And I think if you shift your thinking and by listening to this podcast, you're going to start to see really some lasting changes in your weight loss. Okay, so what we're talking about is reframing and shifting how we view previous weight loss attempts so that we can actually access the wisdom that we have gained from it. Because guess what? You have gained wisdom. You have a ton of wisdom about weight loss. It's just the way we think about it blocks you from actually accessing it. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, I wanted to let you know if you are just wanting to get yourself going, you want to get going losing the weight, but doing it in a way that's actually going to last and help you keep going towards your goals, then make sure you check out my weight loss kickstart course for physicians. So this is a free short course that you can access at weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca/kickstart. Kickstart is all one word on that. That's weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca/kickstart. Inside, you will find videos, worksheets, a whole lot of just easy to use information to kickstart your weight loss, focusing really on the simplest way of getting yourself going, because that's really important. You need to get going in a really simple way so that you keep going. We make that mistake when we're trying to get going with our weight loss is we think it all has to change and we make it really complicated and difficult, so we don't start. Or when we do start, it takes so much work and energy, we can't maintain it in our busy physician lifestyle. So that's what this program is about. Simple, easy tools that fit into your busy physician lifestyle that are enjoyable and will help move you towards success and reaching all of your long-term goals. Okay, so check it out, weightsolutionsforphysicians.ca/kickstart. All right, I wanted to talk, I was thinking what story can I tell you? And what this topic made me think about is a drawer, my bedside drawer, which kind of is a junk drawer. And inside I can still find a whole bunch of Weight Watcher little, this is really old school and I'm totally dating myself here, guys, you used to get these little pocket, little pocket books that you would record your weigh-ins when you went to Weight Watchers and stuff. So I have a bunch of them in my drawer. Does anybody else have this? Where they have all these old ones. And honestly, for a lot of years, what those represented to me is times that I didn't do well enough. Times where I didn't stick with it. Times where I failed. I would see when I'd rummage in the drawer for a pen or something, I would see one of those and I would immediately have this thought of, I just didn't do that well. I spent this money and I just didn't actually do it. And these are old. These would be from probably med school, residency, that type of range. So that's getting pretty old. Again, don't want to age myself too much in one episode, but here I go. And they would make me feel kind of ashamed. On a random day where I was looking in the drawer, I would get this womp womp feeling when I looked at them. And guess what? It didn't help me reach my goals. Thinking about that. It wasn't until I really adopted I'm going to figure it out approach, and I really started being curious about what was working, what wasn't working, that let me start moving towards my goals and let me get lasting changes that I've now maintained for years. And really, when I was thinking about it, what did that come down to? What it came down to is respecting my own wisdom in my weight loss. Previously, I assumed I had no wisdom because I assumed I was failing all the time. Have you been there? Is this do you relate to this? The idea that I don't even know anything about weight loss and yet I've been trying to do it my entire life? That kind of thinking? I was totally there. And that's what that drawer and when I'd see those old Weight Watcher little booklets would do to me is it would just tell me, see, you've been thinking about this and working on this for so long, and yet you don't know what to do. You still suck, is essentially what my brain would tell me. And that's not true. Every single time I lost weight, when I look at my whole life history of weight, every single time I lost weight, I tried to lose weight, I learned things from it. I developed wisdom about it. Sometimes I learned what worked. Sometimes I learned what didn't work. Sometimes I learned what worked in a specific situation. Like when I was in second year med school, I lost actually a lot of weight using Weight Watchers. But when I look back at it, what it really was is, yeah, I followed Weight Watchers, and then there was a bus strike on second year med school. So for any of you listening who've gone to UBC, I rode my bike all the way up the UBC hill every day to get to school. And when we had clinical in a hospital, I'd then ride to VGH or one of the other hospitals. So I was getting a really significant amount of physical activity. And I think that's really what worked. But when I was in it and I was not respecting my own wisdom, I didn't think it was me. I thought it was coming from outside of me. And that's what I want to talk about today is the power of acknowledging the wisdom you hold about yourself, your own eating, and your own weight, and empowering yourself to use that wisdom as you move forward. And what that's going to take is changing the conversation that you're having with yourself about those past experiences. Because I can tell you, most of those conversations you're probably having with yourself, pretty crappy. They're making you feel like poop. Let's be honest. When you think about your past weight loss, weight regain, any of that history, the default story that we tell ourselves, unless you've worked on this, is probably making you feel like poo. And that is not going to help you move forward. So how do we normally view past weight loss attempts? When we think of like, oh, that time that I lost weight doing X, Y, or Z, oh, that program that I did, or like when I'm looking at this drawer of myself of the Weight Watchers, oh, that time I did Weight Watchers and I didn't fully follow through or I stopped for whatever reason. We generally, the default view is that that time was wasted, that any money put into that was wasted, that it was a big failure, big fat failure. And that if we had only been doing better, we should have been successful, right? We have this thought about weight loss that we should just be able to do it and do it right the very first time. And that anything other than that is failure. I want you to reflect on that a little bit. I want you to think on how realistic is that thinking. How many things in your life do you do perfectly the first time with no struggles? And how many of those are as big as trying to navigate your eating in a stressful environment, doing a stressful job, plus in a food environment that is highly biased to make you eat processed and unhealthy food? Of course you're going to fail when you try to lose weight. Of course you are going to have experiences where you try things and they didn't work. Nothing went wrong. That's normal. That's part of reaching for a big goal. The problem is not in those experiences. The problem is in how we think about those experiences, how we label those experiences as a failure or as wasted energy. That's the problem. That's the thought error. The error is not in trying and not succeeding. Anytime you try, anytime you try, anytime you put effort in to change your habits, to learn new habits, anytime any effort put in is successful. It is an investment. It is useful. You may not see the results of the investment right away, but we think we should. Again, the thinking we should see the results of our investment right away is the thought error. It's not, the error is not in trying. what I want you to think about is when we hold the belief that any time spent in past weight loss efforts, any time spent where we've regained weight that we'd previously lost is wasted, if we're thinking from that viewpoint, how does that impact your future weight loss? Well, what it does is it essentially creates this box around your previous experience. And it means you don't access anything in there. You can't access anything that you did actually learn. Because here's the thing, no matter how disastrous a diet was, no matter how much of the weight you regained, how quickly you regained it, whatever you're wanting to tell yourself about it, there were things that went well in there. There were things that you did well. There were successes in that attempt. You learned things and you built your wisdom in that attempt. But if you're labeling it as wasted, as just a failure that you don't even want to think about, you can't access that wisdom. You can't build on the successes that you did have. And honestly, when you want to lose weight long term, that's what it takes. It takes building this wisdom about yourself specifically so that you get a customized way that you approach your weight loss. I talk about this a lot, but it's so important because one diet generally is not going to fix your weight. It's really creating a customized approach to your own weight that works for you and that you enjoy, that actually creates a lasting approach. And that's what I teach inside Stress Eating SOS. And that means you have to learn from the times where you didn't reach your goal. You have to acknowledge and honor the success that was within that attempt, even if the complete outcome wasn't what you wanted. You need to honor the fact that you gained wisdom. Sometimes that wisdom is about what worked. Sometimes that wisdom is about what you liked. Sometimes the wisdom is about what didn't work for you and what you didn't like. And I think it's really important that noticing if something doesn't work for you doesn't mean it's something wrong with you. Doesn't mean it's a default in you. It just means in this particular situation in your life, when you tried it, that approach didn't work, or that approach as is didn't work. And it may take some adjusting that approach or trying a different approach in the particular situation that you are currently in to start to see movement towards your goals. So when we box it up and we make it so we can't access the successes or the wisdom, it's like every time we start losing weight, we're starting fresh. And that puts us into that spot where you might be hoping that this time's going to be different, where you might be sitting there hoping or thinking, I'm going to try. I hope I can do it this time. Because it feels like you're starting fresh, or it feels maybe even like you're starting on a really shaky ground that's based solely on past failures. And that's not going to propel you towards your goals. That's going to feel shaky. It's going to feel uncertain. You're going to doubt yourself. And the first time that you perceive failure, you might stop because you don't have a solid foundation that you're starting that attempt from. Okay, so I want to give you an alternative view. I want you to have a different way of viewing these past attempts. Every single time you have tried to lose weight, it has built wisdom. You as an individual have so much wisdom collectively from all of your experiences about what works for you and what doesn't work. You may not have discovered the complete combination to put it all together yet, but I would argue the reason why you might not have is because of exactly what I'm talking about. You haven't given yourself permission to connect all these dots. They're in these individual little boxed off things in your brain. But you have so much wisdom, and you need to honor your own wisdom to move forward. Honoring your wisdom, honoring your ability to create new wisdom, honoring your ability to problem solve based on that wisdom, those are the things that are actually going to help you problem solve and get to your goals. You have to honor your own wisdom, and you have to look for it. You have to believe that it's there. Okay, so how do you do that? How do you move from viewing these as these horrible failures in your life to things that may actually help you get where you want to go? Number one is you need to stop devaluing your experience. Notice how you talk to yourself about your previous weight loss experience. Notice any thoughts that you have that devalue this. Consider this. What if all of that weight loss experience was not like mistakes that were made, but they were what was required for you to eventually reach your goal? What if every single one of those diets that you've tried, every single time you've lost weight, regained it, whatever's happened, what if all of that was a required part of the process to ultimately reach your goals? It feels very different then, right? It's not wasted time. It's time spent building this wisdom, trying the different things that eventually will help you find what actually works for you. So stop devaluing your experience. Notice when your brain wants to do that and work on shifting it. Now, I get a lot of questions about how do I shift how I think. My brain just wants to think really negatively. Totally fine. That's what normal brains do. How you shift how you think is exactly that. You just practice shifting. You notice the thoughts that you recognize are not going to serve you, and then you practice shifting them to something else. Number two, change the story of your past attempts. Notice the story you're telling yourself about the past times you've lost weight. Chances are they're trying to wrap it up in a big old failure bowl for you. Notice it. Decide to change the story. Shine the light on the things that actually went well. Shine the light on the fact that you keep trying, even though you haven't had the success that you're wanting. The fact you get up and you try again is courage. Focus on that. Tell yourself a story of courage from those previous attempts. On the attempts that you've lost weight and then you regained it, often your brain just wants to say, well, that was a big failure. Never should have regained that weight. Well, I really think viewing it as that was a success. I lost X amount of weight. I know how to lose X amount of weight. The skill that might be missing or the skill that might still need work there is just the maintaining of the weight. And you get to look at it too and be like, did I like how I lost that weight? Did it feel good to me? Or do I want to tweak that? But telling yourself the story of I was successful at losing blank amount of weight. I am successful at losing blank amount of weight. I just need to work on learning how to maintain it. That feels very different, right? Just shifting the story, and it's about choosing something that's believable still. Shifting the story can totally change your outcomes and how you experience your future weight loss efforts. So focusing on where were you successful? What did you learn? What strengths did you develop? What new skills did you find? And even, again, back to the devaluing piece, I know lots of physicians will be like, well, I was doing this really well and I had learned how to do this. Like, let's use exercise as an example. I was really exercising regularly and now I'm not. And we want to totally devalue that and be like, because I'm no longer doing it, I must have done it wrong. Again, total thought error. It just means something pushed you back into old habits. And all you need to do is be curious about what happened and what worked before. How does that need to be tweaked for it to work now? So notice in those stories that you're telling yourself where the devaluing is coming in. And it's going to come in multiple places. And probably the more you keep looking, the more you're going to find. Okay, number 3, focus on what worked and ask yourself, what do you want to take forward from that? So there's some, approaches to weight loss that you may really like, or parts of them that you might really like. And then there might be parts that you're like, long term, that didn't really work well for me. Like, for example, if you were, say, eating low carb, and you were expecting yourself to do meal preps for like 3 hours on Sunday, so you had everything prepped for the week, and then you just couldn't sustain that because you were busy and you're on call one weekend and you didn't get it done, and then it just kind of snowballed from there. Looking at it and going, Okay, that worked. I liked it. I liked the food. I liked having food prepared. But what piece didn't work? And in that scenario that I just gave you, it might not be the low carb eating that didn't work. It might have been the expectation that you needed to meal prep for 3 hours on Sunday. And so maybe you take that forward and you problem solve about how could I make this simpler and not have to spend 3 hours meal prepping. And as I always talk about, the better questions you ask yourself, the better answers you're going to get. So if you ask yourself that question, you will start to get better answers and you will start to get ideas about how do you make it simple without meal planning all Sunday. So focus on what worked. Pull, like if you picture, I'm picturing like one of those big, like fancy whiteboard things that they sometimes use on TV shows where you can like grab things and move them. Like a digital thing. But think of like you, from all these different attempts, you take little pieces and you pull from them and you pull from them and you're going to gather this little basket of what works for you. That's how you move towards creating a customized approach, is you gather this little basket of like what is actually working for you. Number 4, know that failure is not only normal, it's actually necessary. I kind of mentioned this earlier, but think about it. How many big skills in your life have you done perfectly the very first time you try it? About 0. Maybe there's some that you did and that you learned really quickly. But if you think through your life, there's going to be a lot of different skills that you had to try hard to actually get. The one that comes up for me right now is skiing, which is cross-country ski, a form of cross-country skiing for those of you who don't do it. And I talked about it on last year in the podcast. But it is a challenging skill and I have sucked at it for a lot of years. I have done it very poorly, but I keep doing it. And this is now, man, we got our skis before we had kids. So, probably 12, 13 years of having skis that I'm kind of starting to feel somewhat proficient at it. But I had to keep going, like sucking, falling down, feeling like I couldn't breathe after just skiing a very short period of time, and kept showing up and kept doing it. And how do I do that? Well, my brain didn't define it as this big failure. It was just like, this is a hard skill and I'm obviously going to need to keep trying and keep practicing. So my question for you is, why do we apply that failure to weight loss? Why do we not acknowledge that it is a complex, I don't even want to call it one skill because it's multiple skills brought together to get long-term weight loss. It's a complex learning that you have to do, especially in our very food-focused environment. Why do we not acknowledge that it is complex? That it is going to take multiple times. It is going to take trying a whole lot of different things and having it not work. That nobody is going to have a perfect recipe that you can just follow and never think of it again. It doesn't exist because it's a complex set of skills. And that's why I love coaching so much for this, because it's not about me telling you, oh, just do this. It's about me walking with you and helping you figure out what are the different things that are actually working for you? What are the different things that you want to try? And how do you set yourself up for success when you try that? But the fact that you're going to try stuff and fail, you're going to have times where you lose weight and then you fall off track, or you start losing weight and you regain some, all of that is going to be normal. And it doesn't mean anything is going wrong. It's expected. When you're reaching for any big goal, you will fall down. You will make mistakes. You will do things that didn't work for you. And it means nothing about you as an individual. It means nothing about your potential for success. And this is the error we make with weight loss, is we take that and we make it mean something about us. We make it mean something about our ability to actually reach our goals if we, make a mistake or if we fall off track. How would it feel to move forward thinking it's just expected? The only thing you need to do is learn from it, see what wisdom you can gather from it, and move on. Get back to what you have learned works for you. Okay, so to summarize, how you tap into this wisdom is, number 1, stop devaluing your experience. Every single experience, no matter how bad it might feel, You learned something in it. There is wisdom to be gained from it. Number 2, change the story of your past attempts. If you're painting them as these horrible things that everything went wrong on, it's probably incorrect and it's not going to help you move towards your goals. Shift and change the story you're telling you. Look for the successes. Number 3, focus on what worked and how can you take that, move forward with it, maybe tweak it so it continues to work in your current life and keep modifying it. And like I said, picture that gathering all these little pieces of things that worked and putting them all into one basket for yourself. Number 4, know that failure is normal and necessary in reaching a big goal. So even as you put all this into use and you're trying to use your own wisdom and develop more wisdom, you're going to fail. You're going to have times where you end up eating stuff you didn't plan. You're going to have weeks where maybe you don't lose weight the way you want to. None of it is anything going wrong. It is all expected. They are all opportunities to gain more wisdom about what's working for you and what things need to be tweaked. Okay, hope that was helpful for you. I think it's a really important topic. This may be a good episode to listen to more than once because your brain's going to default to try to just wipe away every other weight loss episode that you've had in your life. And you want to just really honor them and really focus on building that wisdom all the time. Every single time you try something new, build wisdom from it. Make sure that you're taking something away from it. That's how you make lasting changes in your life. Okay, if you are enjoying this podcast, please consider sharing it with somebody else. I think this episode could help a lot of physicians out there. Consider sharing it on your social media or telling a friend about it. It really helps the podcast get out. And if you would take time to leave a review, I would love it. I do read all the reviews and they really do help the podcast get found in different search engines. So the more reviews that are there, the more helpful it is. So if you could take time to leave a review, I would really, really appreciate it. All right. Have a fantastic day, guys. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.